Hey, it's Jordan with TYT Network here at the Radisson on Radio Row, as they call it. I have Mark Mackenzie here, who was the former president of New Hampshire's AFL-CIO.
That's right.
I'm really interested to talk to you because I think when you look at the concentration of wealth and a lot of the things Bernie Sanders is talking about, a lot of that starts with union busting under Reagan. So I wanted to ask you, labor unions have been under attack for years, particularly the last few years under Scott Walker, John Kasich in Ohio. Do you feel that Bernie's message, Hillary's message, is speaking enough to having to protect unions as well as not only protect them, but help expand and safeguard them?
Well, I mean, let me first say that I don't see or hear the word union many times in some of these debates. I heard it the other night with Bernie talking about it. I think that if any of the candidates are concerned about the middle class, rebuilding the middle class, finding new ways to share the wealth in this country, the cornerstone of that is going to be the trade union movement in this country. It's the only infrastructure that we have to really make solid change and to really, in many ways, kind of rip the what is rightfully the workers' share of this, the profits and tremendous wealth in this country, to kind of pull it back to where it belongs. And so I think that part of what the strategy has been for the past 20 years, ever since PATCO and the air traffic controllers, is to find new ways to dismantle the labor movement. And that should be troublesome, and we'll talk a little bit about it, but that should be troublesome to America, to the people of America, that they are taking one of the most democratic operations in the country, the ones that stand at the only line of defense in many cases against corporate power, and they're trying to dismantle it. So people should understand exactly what it is that's going on here.
And, Senator Sanders for 20, 30 years has been railing against income inequality, tax cuts for the rich. Secretary Clinton seems to have come over to a more progressive point, but you don't hear them talk a lot about union busting. How is the really attack on unions in newer days under Walker, how is that as threatening to people's livelihood, wage stagnation, as tax cuts for the rich, deregulation, corporate welfare? How is union busting and taking away their power hurt the economy?
Well, I mean, it's clear we've had an influence. If you look at any of the policies in this country, from Social Security to unemployment to workers' compensation, all of these progressive ideas that have been moved for the benefit of all the people in the United States, the labor movement has been at the forefront of all of those changes and used the collective power of the labor movement to move that stuff forward. What we are facing now is an unprecedented attack against the labor movement. Clearly, those people who have an interest in controlling this country, moving in the direction they want to go, have figured out all kinds of ways to dismantle us in this country. And what's going to happen is if we, as a last line of defense against a lot of the policies of the rich and powerful in this country, if we go, there's not a whole lot of people standing in the way that have the kind of infrastructure and power that we have to defend against that. So they need to get us out of the way. And we need to rebuild the labor movement, and people need to understand that we need to coalesce and rebuild it if we're going to have any opportunity in this country to really make significant changes and to hold back and push back against the powers that are trying to take us over.
I think what a lot of people don't realize also is the political calculus, because whether you agree with super PACs or not, I don't. I assume you don't. Under the rules, the biggest contributors to Republicans are, Koch type people, banks. But for Democrats, unions have long been a huge contributor. Rachel Maddow did a graph showing the top 10 contributors, and unions were pretty much one of the top for Democrats. So Republicans chipping away at unions are essentially trying to cripple Democrats unless we get public financing at campaigns and this and that. So do you think that their political calculus has been working? I mean, Walker got it passed through. How do you fight against, the big money that's trying to hurt you?
Well, I mean, I think that's an enormous challenge for the labor movement. The days of the labor movement being able to pony up hundreds of millions of dollars for Democratic candidates is quickly coming to an end if we're not able to build the density of the labor movement. The other thing I think that makes that it really resonates with our members and really is the chatter is what are we getting for this investment in the Democratic candidates and Democratic Party. Now, I have good relationships with many of the people in this room doing things today in support of whatever candidate. That said, though, when we look at things like labor law reform, when we look at things like all of the trade acts and other things like that have been done, those have been done many times at the hand of Bill Clinton, President Clinton. Hillary has never supported, only recently came to a different place for trade, and Democratic governors all over the country. So labor is beginning to say, okay, we got to change this dynamic here. We can't continue to keep pouring our money into Democratic candidates. The AFL-CIO, as of when I come in here today, they are not engaged with this yet. And there are a lot of people, Hillary supporters, and there are other people that are going to be, they're going to keep their powder dry for a little bit. But I don't think you're going to see the kind of money and resources in the future years coming into Democratic politics.
And I'm getting a hint of you feeling the burn. Being for Bernie. Do you think that Bernie's being maligned as a socialist? A lot of moderate Democrats that we've talked to on the trail, he's great if we could vote with our hearts, but with our heads, it's unrealistic what he's proposing. Do you think, making college affordable, do you think getting all people covered, because Obamacare doesn't cover all people yet, is that socialism, or is that something that we should strive for?
I don't care what you call it, and quite frankly, I don't think the people, the state of New Hampshire, the voters who are going to most likely put Bernie over the top here in the next couple of days really care about that terminology of socialism. What I think that people care about is whether or not you can take a candidate, you can trust a candidate, the person has been talking about the right things for a number of years. And let me just say one thing about whether or not it's achievable. When John Kennedy said, we're going to put a man on the moon, when he gave his inaugural speech, nobody ever thought that would ever happen with anybody's lifetime. I mean, it's hard to imagine as a young person that speech in 1962. But that was a reality. Presidents need to think big. Presidents need to set what will be the targets. Now, I've been in the labor movement and the progressive movement for years. It takes a lot of work. And it takes a lot of years. But not to say that's our target, I think is underestimating the power of leadership, and I think it's something that we need to move forward to. Finally, let me say this. I campaigned with Jesse Jackson. And Jesse Jackson used to have a great comeback line. When people asked him about where are you going to get the money to do these programs you talk about, and Jesse Jackson would always snap back and say, we're going to get the money from where the money went. And we know where the money in this country has gone, and it hasn't gone to the working class in this country. It's gone to rich, the top 1% of this country.
But do you think it's also Democrats are at fault too? Because if you look at it, I think a lot of these people who are saying, oh, it's not realistic and this is not how things get done, are comfortable with the system as is. A lot of moderate Democrats are friendly to Wall Street. Hillary Clinton, we know, has given huge speeches. So you're not just up against Republicans, you're up against moderate Democrats who, for lack of a better word, don't see the crisis and the urgency. Feel, all right, we could tinker around the edges, but, we don't need a revolution, so to speak.
Well, I think that, again, presidents were leaders, and presidents should do is they should set the bar. They should say, here's who we want to be. Are Democrats comfortable with that? I think what Democrats are very uncomfortable with is a notion that somebody like Bernie Sanders, who is a Democrat from a small state, who is a progressive guy, they're really uncomfortable with the idea that he could raise the money he needs to raise and he could be a competitor in this thing. I don't know that they have any idea how to deal with that.
Because then they have to win on ideas and not just money.
That's right. And I think they were hoping that Bernie Sanders would get knocked out. I hope that we do well tomorrow, and I hope that we move around this country. But at some point, if Bernie continues to raise the money he has, if he continues to have a powerful message, it's going to be very difficult for the Democrats to continue to say, this guy hasn't got any wings at all. he's getting wings every day.
Why do you think African Americans who benefit greatly from labor unions, he's so behind? Because I would think a lot of his messages are would be very effective for minorities, low-income workers. Why is it that he's losing that battle among minorities?
Well, I mean, clearly the campaign has work to do. And, as a member of his steering committee, that's a conversation we've had with him. That you need to be you need to be more engaged, and your campaign needs to reflect this kind of diversity. And I think he is definitely trying to do that. There's no question about it. I mean, coming out of New Hampshire, that he can't continue in the same direction. He needs to change that perception, and he's trying. I think he's trying to find ways to do that. He's trying to reach out to the black community, and to find opportunities to be able to do that. But it is a legitimate criticism for him, something he understands. I've heard him talk about it directly, and he's got some work to do.
Do you think, like Obama, he needs to give a speech or some type of presentation to say, to show people, I marched for civil rights, here's what I've done for African Americans?
Well, I think I think what he needs to do, my sense would be, is that he's a genuine guy. And he's got to be able to say with confidence that he is not responding to pressure from the Democrats. He's got to come to that place on his own. He's got to feel that on his own, and he's got to make a commitment that his campaign is going to reflect, the diversity of this country. I think he's very capable of doing that, and I think that given the period of time that he has, he's going to really invest in that whole strategy as well.
I want to broader about unions, because it seems even people I know, there's been a dogma that's developed over 20, 30 years. It started under Reagan, I would say, that, unions are just trying to, vulture money away from companies. They're trying to give everybody, unmerited raises, unearned benefits, and essentially taking away capitalism, which is, you get as much as you put in. If you're talented and a hard worker, that's the raise you get. What do you have to say to people who basically say unions are, part of this taker society and moochers? Paul Ryan specifically, and Governor Walker.
I mean, first of all, I think that those people who embrace that are tremendously disrespectful to the people who do the work every day and have built this country. But the real cry for equity should come and be targeted at those people who have accumulated the most wealth in this country and who have ripped it out of the hands of the everyday workers who do nothing more than try to feed their families and be some of the most productive workers in the world. And the idea that somehow the labor unions, who have fought for a fair treatment of workers, fought for better wages, fought for health insurance, are somehow the villains in a system, as Bernie Sanders says, that is rigged, is a real injustice to the American workforce. And I think that this campaign is going to be, Bernie Sanders is going to be, about saying, look, we respect what the contributions you make, and you should share you should be able to share in those kinds of benefits for your work.
I lied. One more question. I met a transgender female at the debate. Gay marriage obviously was legalized, but there's still discrimination in the workplace towards gay people. This transgender female was telling me that she's been turned down for jobs before. How does President Sanders, in concert with labor unions, help the new class of people, same-sex couples, transgender individuals?
Well, I mean, clearly Bernie Sanders has a record on supporting gay marriage, on supporting gay rights. He's been at the forefront of that a long time. I understand that there is clearly discrimination in workplaces against whether it be gay or transgender, whatever the case may be. The good thing is, I think that the people that embrace Bernie Sanders and his message and his campaign, I really think very differently. The young people who are coming to the table these days and coming to the fight with Bernie Sanders are out there, and they are really offended by the suggestion that anybody would, be discriminated in any way when in that particular thing. So I think that the young people coming to this more open-minded are going to have a major influence on this issue. If they want somebody who is open-minded about this, if they want somebody who supports their position, then Bernie Sanders is. Hillary Clinton, on the other side, has not been a supporter of gay marriage. I mean, she voted. There were votes that were taken, and she clearly has said how she feels about
She
that.
evolved, as they say.
Yeah, she evolved. Well, and there's nothing wrong with evolving. I mean, I think you, as a candidate, you need to. But that said, deep inside of you, it's got to get this sense, this moral compass that you have all the time, and you need to base your decisions on that. If you lack that, or there's something that it doesn't square with you, then it's not about evolving. It's responding or being moved by the polls or whatever the case may be in that direction. So I think Bernie really feels it. I mean, he feels it, he understands it, and I think he's committed to it. And once he's there, he's there. There's no question about it. He's not going to change.